guess I got 6 o'clock on the clock in the back there, so I'll call this meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. The pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States. Thank you. Ethan, here. Ashley. Here. Amber. Here. Darren. Here. Ethan's here and Dennis is here. Public comment tonight. Looks like we got 3 people that wish to speak. And the first one. Yeah, go ahead, get the microphone.
I just wanted to come and speak. I know you guys are going to be obviously talking about like mask mandates and all that fun policy stuff today. And I just wanted to say, like, as someone who has, obviously struggled with being in a mask in a classroom, needing all the extra caffeine to get through that, it is kind of getting back to the situation where now we're once again having a lot of COVID spread in our area, and Delta variant is obviously attacking children a little bit more seriously and more frequently than the original COVID strain. I know teaching and learning in a mask is not everyone's favorite, certainly not popular, but I would like to advocate for other teachers like myself who would rather just have my kids with me in the classroom. And I really think that are doing the impossible last year of keeping all of the kids together for 75% of the year during prom and extracurriculars and stuff like that has really proved that we can stay together and be better together and learn in our classrooms in a safe way using our multi-layered approach. So I know you guys have a lot on your place, and I super appreciate all of your many deliberations over all these crazy things. I think you guys have done a wonderful job with that. So I hope you just kind of keep that in your minds as we go forward talking about these things today.
Thank you, Lynn. Next up is Megan.
So we were here at the last meeting, not official meeting,
Special.
on the opposite side of the mask mandate. We want it to be optional. It's a choice. And as parents, like, we had our children out of the district the entire year last year. That was very difficult for both of our boys. Our oldest in particular. He's on an IEP and he struggles with social issues. So being removed from school for the entire year because it was mandated masks was incredibly difficult for him. He did not meet his IEP minutes, and he still continues to struggle with the issues that he's on an IEP with because of that. I work in Dane County. Not a fan of it because the rules and standards continue to change. However, I work with special education students and a very high needs population. And we were in operation the entire time during COVID with no masks. We had one staff member test positive during that entire time period, and we had 0 spread because of our sanitizing procedures, our hand washing procedures, and different things like that. It's not necessary, nor is it something that's truly effective to utilize masks. That's based on manufacturers saying that themselves, that it doesn't cover COVID. So I think that if the school district continues to do things that they have outlined in the updated Pirate Safe Sailing Plan without the masks, I do think, based on personal experience, that it would be effective. I've seen it work. We even had like hand, foot, and mouth, one of the most contagious things that can go through a place, come into our building, and have 0 spread with that. Again, because of our sanitizing procedures. No masks used the entire time. So we urge you to allow families to continue to make those choices. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be Benjamin.
I'm pretty short. I'm just gonna say that urge you guys to keep the choice of masks optional for the families to decide. Comes down to the way our sons struggled last year for us. Their social skills went backward. On the son, reading skills went backward. It just was not the best environment for us. And all of a sudden, we had to do what we did at the time, but I think we're working out with all of that massive adoption.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that did not sign in? Okay. Student council update.
Oh, sorry. Wait for chat there. Sorry. Student council update, they're moving ahead with homecoming. Kind of wait to see kind of how the board meeting goes here tonight on preparations and what they're going to send out. But ready for homecoming activities. Get ready for school to start and get ready for conception to start in a couple weeks.
Very good. Next up is discussion of possible action on school board meeting minutes of July 14th, 2021, the regular school board meeting, and August 3rd, 2021, special school board meeting. Entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 14th, 2021 regular school board meeting minutes as well as the August 3rd, 2021 special school board.
Second that.
Motion by Ember, second by Derek. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those same sign. Carried. Next up is approved to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
You got the same two normal papers you have for normal treasury report. It's just the month of July, so it's not a lot of numbers there, but I will give you the kind of the preliminary audit results that we finished up last week. The last 3 years, the district has gone in deficit and take money out of fund balance. It's on my superintendent's report. I'll just reference it right now. But last year ago, there's a deficit of $176,000. Year before, a deficit of $184,000. Before that, a deficit of $30,000. $30,000 is not that easy, so that's actually pretty close. But this year, we are adding $182,000 to our fund balance. I just want to thank all the staff for working together to come up with some good decisions to help us become more financially solvent after this past year. So we're probably increasing our fund balance from 17% now to be about 20%. Mid the 20s, now a much better ballpark. So pretty relieved that we're able to do that this year.
Do you think that will be enough to not have to short-term borrow this year then, or?
Andrea and Kelly, we did a good idea in that we really didn't short-term borrow much this past year. It's going to be fairly minimal now, we assume. The other, we're just going to have to wait and see on that. But yeah, it's not very likely that we need much short-term borrow. The other good thing about that is since the state didn't give us any extra money and put people later revenue limit this year, that surplus or the extra we had in our budget last year actually is going to carry us into this next year, keep us solvent this next year. So it's a good thing they had that money. So next year we can use that as just for operating. We'll be a lot better off than a lot of districts who are going to have to rely totally on the COVID relief money to balance the books this next year. We look like that would be just extra to take care of the needs. We're probably fortunate.
Great, thank you for your hard work with that.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance.
I'll make a motion to accept the charter report.
Second. I'll second it. Motion by Ashley, seconded by Nathan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Next up is, I'll make this as a motion to accept payroll for 8/30/2021, 9/15/2021, and vouchers 421-707 through 421-811 and 202-1000001 through 202-1000028 for $388,221.81. Second.
I'll second that.
Motion by Keith, second by Derek. Any further discussion? Hearing none, and all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Old business, discussion of possible repair, painting front and sides of buildings.
At the board meeting held special 2 weeks ago, we approved a couple of things, but we also talked about this one, and said, let's try to find another bid, running to find another bid is worth really looking at. So I bring back the numbers we had last time. There was a company that would do the repair and a separate company to do the painting, but they were $8,000 higher than Magna painting, but the entire job of repair and painting was $18,435. So we want to get that cleaned up and looking nice and work the way it should. They would be the best bid of Magna painting.
Would you want to just go over, for me and for anyone else who doesn't know for sure, what all scope does that cover? Like,
First thing would be power washing, to clean it, prepping, caulking. There's a lot of repair work. If stuff was damaged. You don't like birds making nests in our stucco. They would also fill those and repair those. A lot of patchwork, some siding that's come off, trim molding, some covers on the overhangs, and then of course the painting should really make the front of our building sparkle again. I think that's one comment that many people make when they come in. So, well, the inside looks nice. So this can help the outside match our inside.
and would that be all the way from the band room down around the kindergarten room?
All the way around by kindergarten, wherever the stuff is.
I'll entertain a motion for the bid.
I'll make a motion to accept the bid for repair of the front side building of the school.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion by Nathan, seconded by Amber. Any further discussion? Hearing none, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, topics for the newsletter. Did Charmaine get a hold of you for the route ride for the VFW?
Not me.
September 2nd, so I'll have her send it up.
Sounds good.
Get that in as well as the VFW paid off a veterans family registration fees that were overdue, so effectively as well. Then that donate. Register.
No problem.
Okay. Yep. Anything else from that? Next up is the adoption of the employee handbook changes.
You have your handbook there, the sent out one, with highlighted in red. The new changes, strike out the things we wanted to delete. So I'll kind of go page by page where I highlighted different spots. And we have that page 9 is where it starts. Most of this is just a change in terminology for job classifications. We've had certified and non-certified staff, so I changed the non-certified to the contracted. This is the people that are listed there, and versus hourly. People in the hourly are paid by the hour exactly. The others actually have a work agreement that tells you what the payment here is. So I just separate those a little bit out and kind of tell most of our directors or like the building ground director consider this and give us some other title changes. So that's one thing. Next one, page 18. It's the strikeouts from last year. They did a change in when people got paid. Some people got an extra pay to split up the years. They changed the pay dates, so it went from 22 or 23. Everyone either gets 20 or 24. There's no in between. So everybody's on the same schedule. It'll make life for Anthony a lot easier. So everybody gets paid at the same time. So that was just a change that kind of had to be because we've gone past that year. At the bottom of page 21, just glad I have hourly, trying to know who reports to who lets someone know when they're going to be gone. So that's the hourly workers there on the bottom of page 21. Page 25, we're working with Andrew. We talked about how we actually are determining vacation. And I crossed off the names on top, and just whoever has vacation. And this is what we have for, it's mostly for custodial and maintenance staff. It's mostly who gets this vacation. So we put in change to how we actually are determined vacation hours they get. So so that the handbook matches what's actually in practice here. Page 29. Something that came from the legal conference. I know you all reference the conference again, but I get to my report at the end of the meeting tonight. But, one of the lawyers talked about you have to hold employees accountable. They have to know they can be held accountable, and you should put this in there, discipline, and that can come in many different forms. It's also in our policy what that might look like. So put in there that the board retains the right and responsibility to manage workforce and hold employees accountable for their job performance. Not, in an appropriate manner based on the rest of the board policies. Page 33, there's a number of things there that changed. We put down this, everybody was assuming an 8-period day, partly because that's not the assumption anymore. We have a block schedule, so really there's 4 periods one day, 4 periods the next, and Friday is 8. So it's not necessarily an 8-period day, but we just kind of put that out of 8 periods that you get. One non-instructional period, the cross-off resource period, that's not there. So because of the way the block schedule is set up, not everybody's schedule with the same each day. It's not like they teach 6 out of 8 classes every single day. So there's a little more variation. So that also now matches more what we're doing with the block schedule. The lines underneath that has to do with the overload. We looked at overloads this year, and I calculated based on what we had here. And it's like, I wouldn't do it. I'm not sure why a teacher would volunteer to do that. It was like no reason that they would want to. So we made it very simple, but it's an 8-hour day, and if you're going to teach another hour, you should have 1/8 extra. If it's another half hour, you need 1/16 extra work agreements. It seemed to be more of a fair way to do things, and I think if there was a need, we actually have staff say, yeah, I'll do it. It's worth my time now. And it's still not that much money. They're not hiring another extra teacher. It's hard to find a part-time teacher. You have to find a really good quality one. So I think this would make it easier when there is a need that Mr. Zogler, Mr. Barrett say, hey, I just need 1 period covered. Might have someone willing to do it because it's now worth their time, worth their effort to do that. And then down at the bottom, just added the district for hourly staff. The district reserves the right to alter the beginning anytime of the employee day as long as employee day remains consecutive hours. As we talk about, especially maintenance custodial, you need some flexibility to cover things. And I've talked with Dave about this. He likes this idea. Give them a little bit of flexibility to make sure that all our needs are covered. It can be flexible. It can be a different one day because of something special going on. But people would always know well ahead of time. It wouldn't be a dramatic change, but at least know that we can have an employee that can say, we need this schedule change. Here's what we're going to do. And not just for no reason, but this is a good reason behind it. So they really kind of like that idea. Page 37, just changing the tweaking about the job posting. Most of our teaching staff all go on weekend, so all the teachers look there. We put a number of things on weekend, but that's not always what people are looking. So we just posted by the district in a manner by determined by administration to obtain the most qualified candidates. So we often discuss in the office, well, what's the best way to get some? Just, it doesn't have to be one way written down. How do we find the most best candidates? And based on the people I've met, hired better than that. That's some really good people. We met the brand new teachers today, and I'm really excited to see the great crowd of people coming in and have another day that we recruit. And so I just like us to have flexibility to find the very best way, the biggest pool of quality candidates possible, and that we're not narrowed down to this is the way it must be done. Page 40. Talking to Mr. Anderson about the bus drive, he made some suggestions. This cleaning and fueling the bus, just to put some things down there to make sure that they know that's part of the route. There's some routes that aren't a full hour, so doing a 45-minute route usually has that time to clean the bus to get the garbage out. So he suggested that, and there's another place later on where he made some other suggestions he'd like to see for the bus drivers. Page 42. This is about the mentoring program. I started with the mentors today with our new teachers. I want to make sure that administration has a very hands-on selecting mentors and who mentors who. It always hadn't been that way. We got people willing to serve as a mentor. We think teacher X really would be good with this person. Really, this is an administration review. assigning mentors, and it hasn't always been that way in the past. We got a much closer hand on how we selected who to be with who this year for a wide variety of reasons. So we worked with the mentor leader on doing this, but I think the administration it's got a much closer hand and watch on how we're assigning mentors and who's a good mentor for who. Page 47, this is the salary schedule that you approved a few months ago for teaching staff. On the bottom of it, we also did add their eligible for salary step increase if they're not on an improvement plan with offered a contract. And the state funding doesn't support the increase in the step, the increase is determined by the board with teacher input. So we still have that involved on their opinion. But if state funding allows, this is what it should look like. But we also talked about the time we adopt this, someone that was on an improvement plan. At the time we make that offer, they'll be waiting for next year to get that increase. Page 48, some other things that Mr. Anderson suggested near the bottom. Transportation director for the buses. And the regular route includes keeping the bus clean. It's not an additional thing for hours beyond that. The bus that's taken care of. And that there could be additional tasks he assigns that they limit to for a pay of $16 per hour. That was quite a few, but I think that might be next.
Or you can have somebody that's just checking, like I just noticed the one thing was the gas thing that was taken off.
That's kind of Brian's responsibility to make sure.
Yeah, that was the question.
I wanted to know if somebody was gonna be checking like the gas in the buses since they struck the thing that said if you have less than a quarter tank to make sure that there's.
Brian actually wants to fill the buses himself. We only have like 3 going out at a time, but he would like to do that, right, Brian?
No, we actually discussed that today. And on Monday, we'll have a bus driver meeting. And in that meeting, we will teach everyone how to fill with the propane station. That way, everyone, once we get to that quarter station, Mr. Anderson has trained everyone, firsthand to be able to fill the buses when they need to be filled. So that's not just his time. Last year, under a couple other people, they decided there was only going to be 2 or 3 or 4 of us that learn how to fill buses, where this year it's totally easy and everyone can be trained. And that way, everyone that drives a route bus will be part of their route to make sure the buses are filled. We're all propane now, so they all need to know how to do that.
That's a change for those guys.
And this was distributed throughout the staff and the employees, so they all had a chance to look at it.
They have not seen all this yet. We talked to a few about it. There wasn't a lot of things that affected them directly besides the pay. When we had talked about the pay, that was the biggest thing to spend time with them on. The rest of this, it's kind of editorial in a lot of ways, except for the overload thing. And we don't have to ask them like that.
I'll ask again, on page 47, the salary schedule, where it talked about the improvement plan process. And I just want to ask, see if we can find a compromise some way. If a teacher does come off that improvement plan, I want to propose a change. If a teacher would come off that improvement plan and stay with the district for say 2 years or something, could we get them back that compensation so they aren't forever a step behind? Otherwise, they lose that year of increase for the cost of living, they lose that for the rest of their time in Fall River. And I'm just wondering if that would be enough to retain the teachers who work really hard to get off those plans.
If you wanted to, we can make that adaptation. So what by say by second semester, like the second half of the contract, could make that change. We would like to put that as an addition to this.
I think the incentive is to never have them get on an improvement plan, so if we make it that you can get right back up to where you were, then there's no reason for the improvement.
Well, because I fear the teacher has 3 options. They could either leave the district and say, I can make more somewhere else, I'm not on the plan. They'll either not get off the district and we'll post them out of that position, or they'll stick with us and believe in our system. And so I just am really hoping that we can reward the staff who work hard to, and like you said, they hopefully have never get on it, but life happens, things come up, reasons that a teacher might get on a plan or a staff member might get on a plan.
How quickly do typically once they go on an improvement plan, how quickly do they get off? If they get off.
In my reason, I ran them most of the year. So like, depending on when we have issues, we'll start them in the beginning of the year or, wherever that runs, and we'll run them through the school year. And usually then by the end of the year, you'll know if you're going to be off or if they're deciding to stay with the district, or we're going to ask them to be non-renewed, or So it's about a year cycle, 7 months.
And
anywhere
then
from
how
there.
frequently would you say that you or someone who's meeting with them to talk about the progress on the plan?
And the most recent ones that I've done have usually been 3 to 4 weeks. We meet every month throughout the plan to make sure that we're meeting the benchmarks and check marks that we have in the plan, making sure we're getting feedback and giving that feedback.
But before you put them on a plan, you don't just put somebody on a plan, unless it's been already working with them
Right.
for quite some time,
Correct. Correct. There's been a process in place where we've
Yeah,
talked to
quite a few
verbally,
opportunities.
emails, write-ups before we get there, yes.
And if they're on an improvement plan, they decide to leave. If they say this.
But I do think maybe something like what Dennis was saying where, like I would say, like if they're still on the improvement plan prior to, by the end of the school year, then maybe they don't get that increment, but if by semester, they are all of a sudden off the plan, then they should be able to jump. I don't know if it's necessarily we should be giving them retro for what they missed, but I feel like they should be able to jump right then to that new, where they would have been if they weren't on the plan. So,
They wouldn't have gotten a $1,250 raise, but we went halfway through the year and said, okay, you've got the plan, you're fine now, they've lost $625. The second half of the year, they'll get that $625. So then they'll be where they should be the next year. They won't get the 90 you're saying, but they won't lost. They lost by some financially. We did it at semester time or halfway through the year.
and the only time I see a problem with that is if somebody doesn't get on a plan until like the end of the year, and then it's like, well, then I don't know. So I feel like I'm hoping that most people are put on a plan at the start. of the year.
In most of our experience, you're talking November, December, we're establishing that plan and we're working through the school year, so, it's not something that's really a year pop on, pop off, it's a cycle of a few months, 4, 5, 6 months of work to try to get off of what we see the deficiencies are.
So if it takes 5 or 6 months to get off the list, can't we wait 6 more months and make it from 1 year the time that they go, from when they go on the plan of improvement to giving them the money that they missed on?
Sure,
Giving
give
it
them
1
like
full,
a year.
yeah, 6 months with Brian's tutoring or with whatever, and then, okay, you got the next 6 months and then you can make it up. I mean, you just.
When you say make it up, you're talking about getting where they was to it, not retroactive.
Not retroactive. But just giving it 6 months after the first 6 months to just, you're on your own again now, that's what you're doing.
I'm not supporting anything that is during their improvement plan that they would get consideration for that. Get off the improvement plan and back and treat it like a.
To Derek's point, life does happen, things happen, people make mistakes, I mean, so none of us are perfect. But I think waiting 6 months after the improvement plan is not terrible.
Well, I feel like just usually, it's not like, all of a sudden you're on the improvement plan. I mean, there's usually a lot of conversations between administration and everything.
I just want to make sure that staff understand that it is an improvement plan, and I know we mentioned this before, it's not a punishment plan, and that it's not punitive. Like, the goal is to make you a better educator, a better custodial staff, or whatever position it is. And like that cost of living, like I said, if you miss that for a year, you never make that up across your career because you always get stuff behind.
That's why my hope is typically if you get on an improvement plan, I hope that you're gonna really work your butt off to get off of it by the end of the year, and then you're not missing anything, because then you can still get that raise for that next year.
I want to keep the administrator's ability to have a tool that incentivizes them to get on.
Yes.
We could put something down that says, if you come off the improved plan in the middle of the school year, you could prorate the raise for the rest of the school year.
I would feel better with that because then it's not just the timing. If you have an improvement plan near the time of contract or something, that would make me personally feel more equitable in the process.
Well, and maybe, I don't know, maybe if you can put something in where it's like, if, and again, I'm asking, I don't know how you say typically like, 6, 7 months or whatever. Like, again, I don't know if we want to put some protection in there in case they get thrown on a plan in April or March, like maybe it's like, if you get off the plan in 6 to 7 months, then.
Sure.
Then, you know what I'm saying?
In some of my cases, if I can speak, I mean, if we're at the end of the year in April and May, we're gonna coach them up and still coach and finish the year, and then the following year, we're gonna say, we're gonna start in September on this plan. And so that we wouldn't throw them on a plan with a month left in school to try to fix anything. It's gonna start at the beginning of the year. They know that coming in, that we're gonna start you here.
I think we got a pretty good teaching staff. What's the frequency of this?
I have not, last few years, none, but there's been some.
We're
I was gonna say,
trying to
I
address
figured
something
that
that's not
only
about.
heard of maybe
Well,
one or two.
there's no one currently on an improvement plan as of today.
And I like to think, I mean, I know that there's issues. The job of working like if they are. That should be the very last floor, putting somebody on. By the time you get to that point, you should work. quite a bit.
And that's what makes Sparrow special. We want them to be part of our group and part of our team and build them up and then keep them as long as we can. And so that's part of it.
I see no need to change.
But I still feel like
It doesn't happen.
I do agree with you, not having a priority. I would be okay with saying, if you were to go out, when you get back here, we're gonna put you back where you did.
like proactive.
We're gonna
Prorate.
not related to like the
For the
time
rest of
that we're, but they're getting, they have some work. Otherwise, there's kind of what's the incentive, right, with your own.
I think prorating is a good compromise.
If you want to make that amendment to the recommendation, we could look at that.
Okay, with that, then I guess if you're gonna make that just a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the employee handbook with the adjustment on page 47 to prorate the salary for when the staff members off their improvement.
But I want to let you automatic, like, I feel like you should do it, well, not do it, I feel like it should be more at your discretion, or administrative discretion. Do they feel like they're?
Our discretion is when you've met the.
But when you're off.
Yeah, if you, yeah.
But he's saying when you're off.
So automatically,
When,
do that, or
if we met with a teacher, and I had a teacher in another district where we said, okay, here's the plan, we met at this amount of time, and they met their benchmarks. They said, okay, run the plan. And we're gonna keep working with you and keep make sure you don't go backwards, but at that point, so you no longer an improvement plan. So if we feel like teacher X has made the progress and we met, let's say, meeting monthly, so okay, it's January 6th. Okay, we feel like we've met the benchmarks. We're not gonna keep you on the improvement plan. We're at continue meeting. Just make sure you keep working on those things and keep improving. Otherwise, you can always go back. Yes.
Jared, can you add clarification to your motion?
Does that make sense? So the employee handbook with the change of page 47 to prorate the salary increase for the year once the employee's off their improvement plan.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Derek, seconded by Ashley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and I'm opposed. Move on to discussion of possible action on the updates for the fire plan, safer Sam.
Let me go through some of the things in the plan, give you some data and some history and some other schools, what's been going on, and just kind of a background. So in the plan, I wrote down lessons learned last year. Last year, we had 0 headlights in school, which is Duke Elementary. That's a miracle. Every parent is really happy that that didn't happen. Very little colds, very little flu bugs. So whatever it was that works, it worked. I can't tell you, this is the one thing that did it, that's the one thing that did it. It could be a combination of many things, but we did something right last year. I said, if we did the 5 that stay home when you're sick, sanitize and clean, keep separate, quarantine, mask, those are what we did last year. And I think the main one is stay home when you're sick. Remember our last year, if everybody that stayed home when they're sick, I don't think any person caught it at school. Not one COVID case, I think, was spread at school. if everyone stays home sick. I also have there, we now have the extra layer of protection with vaccinations. The data I wrote on the update, at this point, 54.5% of our district population is 2,902 people who live in the Fall River School District. 54.5% of them are now vaccinated. Across the county, when you look at middle school, high school kids, it's around 40% of them that are vaccinated. So we have that extra tool. There are less people who are likely to catch COVID, or they're less likely to get really sick from it because of their vaccination status now.
Can I ask you a question, please?
Sure.
So the 54% of the population, is that out of everybody or just the eligible people for that?
The way the data read is 54.5 of the whole population. We have a number of people who are too young to be vaccinated, so that takes a number of people. Once they're eligible for vaccination, let's say 40% of them get vaccinated, that increases the percentage. Could be significantly. We would hope that that comes out soon, but we don't know for sure when that will happen. So I wrote in here that the current conditions, in general, we're at a much better place than we were last year. We know a lot more. Universal precautions, we still do much of the same things, lots of hand sanitizer, lots of hand washing, sanitizers, and everything a little bit. We'll do a lot of the same things last year in this plan. Keep people apart. 3 foot is now the social distancing standard. So it was 6 foot last year, so people be a little closer. We'll do a lot of cohorting to keep people together. For instance, at lunch, so do those classes lunch together, so they don't mix in at lunchtime at least with Lisa's class. The same thing for all the other grades, but still keep them separate as much as possible. Masks, is the CDC has recommended that. For structures in place to increase safety, we've already talked about a national order. Masks are required pretty much in all transit vehicles. Increased hours of nursing services, we now have Jessica for 20 hours a week, so we have her around more. Oh, and she and I have been looking at testing, where we could possibly get testing here at school instead of sending someone's got sniffles, well, let's test them. Are looking into a way of getting that here instead of having to send them someplace, so we can get a little quicker turnaround and get some better data and maybe head off things a little quicker. The quarantine is a big part of that too. I really believe. Think about our elementary classes. We did have elementary kids. I don't know if Jessica ever got back to how many cases we had, but I would say that there were 50. Well, in the elementary, there were 50 kids who got it. Middle school, high school had a different issue for a little while. But when an elementary student got COVID last year, we quarantined that class. I don't think we could find one case where another kid in that class got it from them. So I really like that we can continue doing that. Our teachers will have to be prepared to deliver different instruction, different ways of gathering, that be very flexible again. Okay, besides increasing nursing services, we're still going to take Clorox electrostatic machine, go through twice a week, kills viruses, kills germs. That may have been a big part of keeping us healthy last year. Classes can still go outside. I'm sure the physical education classes will be outside as much as they can. Middle school and high school are still continue the modified block study we had last year, reducing about half the kids that they would run into each day, so that less people would possibly quarantine. And I should go back and mention quarantine. We're looking at kids who are eligible to be vaccinated. We are quarantining someone who is vaccinated. And that's encourage some kids to be vaccinated, so they don't have to miss whatever it is that's important to them. So take 40%, let's say 10 kids are close contacts, 4 of them are probably not quarantined because they've been vaccinated. So that 10 is now down to 6 kids who are going to quarantine. In elementary class, they all go home like we did last year. Field trips, we'll do the same thing we did at the end of last year. Chaperones can come with us if they got a negative test or could present a vaccination card. I think that would be a standard. Parents can spend a long time with our kids. We may ask the same thing of a volunteer who's going to be in the classroom a lot. I think it's okay for people in, especially if they can prove that they're not COVID related. School exclusion guidelines, it's really similar to what you had last year. The number of days is slightly different. We just checked this out with me, but that's how she would use this again. She'll be here all day Monday, all day Wednesday, and half the days on Friday. It's all in there. So I would send this to parents if it's approved so they can see the contact information, how to get home to Jessica. She was fantastic help last year. We really appreciate having her, and the extra hours this year is really a blessing for us. Home health screening guidelines, we changed that, just to remind parents that that is really the first line of defense. We don't send sick people to school, and we'll remind our staff of the same thing, that if you don't come to school sick, rather have them to stay home. Guidelines for students who become sick at school, we'll isolate them, much the same as last year. So a lot of the stuff is very, very similar. Like the last statement is this plan is subject to change at any time based on current conditions. It may be necessary to reinstate precautions used in the past, or maybe possible restrictions laid out in this plan. And the paper I gave you, even Jessica sent this earlier, that I've been talking for a long time. I have no desire to mask on kids, none at all. But I also want to make this not an emotional decision. I just want to prove my data. And the data, when I sent this to you on August 12th, there were 0 cases of COVID in the district over the last 7 days. Community transmission area was very low at the time. The CDC states substantial transmission is when there's 50 cases per 100,000. And we hadn't been close to that. We were at 0. 2 days ago, we were at 10. And today we had 137. So things have changed. And I've been on a lot of Zoom calls with conference superintendents, C5 superintendents, and the only schools before today that were wearing masks were Madison, Dane County area. Conference schools within Dane County were all wearing masks. But outside of Dane County, Columbus and Beaver Dam only approved wearing masks. But no school our size, Rio, Cambria, Randolph, Marcus Sand, anyone else in our conference who was outside of that area had all said, no, we're not wearing masks unless the data changes. Well, as I told you, data has changed to some degree. The one kind of compromised school district that was kind of intriguing to me was Lodi. They require masks for elementary because elementary students cannot be vaccinated. Middle school, high school kids in general can be vaccinated. Do you put restrictions on the middle school, high school kids when they have the option, when their parents have that discussion, whether they want to be protected from COVID with the vaccination? That's a family discussion and choice. So there's kind of a middle ground. You say no mask, you say everyone's a mask, and the Lodi example makes some sense to me. I feel for the children who can't be vaccinated. Protect them and want to draw a line someplace that might be where we draw it now, but I've also asked that as this number changes, if it comes south of 50 again, allow the administration to say, okay, the data says it's not substantial transmission anymore. Maybe we just go back to the way we were with the optional mask again. So that's an awful lot to throw at you at one time, but that's everything we've learned. As Mr. Berry says, I'm not a doctor, play one every day, it feels like in the last year.
So as of, I know I've talked to quite a few of the other districts, and as of this morning, Ryle's plan was to basically, like, each week look at the data.
Right.
And I know as of today, they would have been masked. Don't make those.
Yes.
Are they still doing that same thing after these numbers cutting so much?
I haven't talked to them because I looked at these.
I know
numbers
these just came out. I know.
At 2:30 today, I saw these. It's like, oh, it's out there for anyone to look at. It's easy to see. And I'm thankful that the Department of Health Services in Wisconsin has now changed. So their CDC data now looks similar, because otherwise the two didn't look all alike. It's the same data, but now they match each other. They look much more similar, and it makes everything easier for all of us. But I do like the Department of Health Services because they give you data down to our school district. The CDC can only give data down to the county. So I would like to look at the data for our school district and what's going on here. I also mentioned in there, the other is, well, what's happening in our school. If there is a number of kids having COVID in our school, well, then we know it's here, we've got to do more. But if we have nothing happening in our school, we don't know what those cases are. It's actually 4 cases that give you that high number. 4 out of 2,900 people is 137 per 100,000 divided out into the ratio. So those 4 people actually, we're talking about state, could be a family. I don't know. I have no idea who it is because it's not public. But that number was concerning when I heard it today. I still don't like the idea of the mask. That's why I bring up the Lodi example.
Did you have a different recommendation for like spectators right now? I just was wondering about that too. I didn't know if that was mentioned.
I do not have a different recommendation for them.
It's to keep it sustain what we have yet.
Or
Well,
is it
if I just go by what I told you here, that if it reaches 50, we probably should do something different. But my recommendation is to do that for elementary, because those kids can't be protected. Middle school, high school kids do have a choice. Technically, sixth graders don't have a choice, all of them. There are some that are 12 already, some are reached the age of 12 later on, but they're part of our middle school. So my recommendation, we decide where we want to draw that line and have, for the time being, masks for those who can't be vaccinated. Who are in high school, it's kind of your family choice whether you are vaccinated or not, taking the risk or not. I think that's kind of a personal choice thing. So my recommendation is probably the mask on the elementary.
Then what about elementary teachers?
It would be hard to tell the kids you wear a mask and the teacher's not wearing a mask.
It's always the mask. I am so done with the mask. I just cannot understand. We're not denying anybody from wearing a mask. They want to wear a mask, they wear a mask. That gives them protection. My challenge and burden is the forcing of those that do not want. Because they have the concerns that the mask is actually the spreader.
Then my question is, so you have a first grader at school, and I'm the parent, and I tell him to wear a mask. I mean, I would be worried all day long that he would take his mask off, or they would go out for recess and take the mask off, and then come back inside and not think to put the mask on.
So
And I'm not gonna make elementary teachers be the light, the person that has to be in charge of who should do, whose parents want them to wear a mask and who doesn't. So I as a parent would feel very uncomfortable with younger kids sending them to school, not knowing if they were gonna remember. to keep
there's
their
no
mask.
study that says that the mask is going to be the cure.
And there's studies that say that it's not. So we can argue that all day long.
We can. It's
Yeah.
18 months into the process and we've tried this. What is wrong with trying not wearing the mask?
Because those kids, so what's gonna happen then when the first kid ends up in the hospital because he's got COVID? What are you gonna do? When it's a third grader now that's got COVID and we didn't require masks?
And you said that you're sure that it came from somebody that.
I don't know, you can't be sure it didn't.
I think we all have the same goal here, which is we want to keep our kids healthy and we want to keep our kids
In school.
in school. Like no matter what do we have to do to keep them in school? Nobody can predict what's going to happen, even if some people think it's very hard to know what's going to happen, right? But our goal is to take precautions. So I think that the most important thing is how do we take precautions to know that we are following, the numbers. I told them that's most important to me. Like I want to see numbers and facts of like where are we at. And I think it worked well last year when we kind of left it to Dennis to continue. I know you do a great job watching it daily. You're updating us, you're sending emails. I think you and I talked to Jessica for a while today. There's Jessica, I know she couldn't be here, but she gave a lot of good numbers. So I think it's important that we continue.
And her recommendation
And
was
remember that we're all the same.
The
So
recommendation was
I
masks.
just heard at least have that.
Were you guys at picture day last Tuesday? Were you guys, I mean, I know we're talking hypothetical, were you at picture day last Tuesday? I mean, the auditorium was full. There's probably 50, 60 people in here, and the people that wanted to wear masks wore masks, and the people that didn't. And there was probably 4 people in here that were wearing masks. That's not arguing not to wear masks, but I think at some point we should. It was
Everybody.
mixed, yeah. So I mean, it's not advocating for not wearing masks, but it is advocating to some point to let people have their own choice. Dennis's plan, K through 6, makes sense. I agree with you. I agree with you. I would feel bad if my kids went to school or, they were younger or whatnot and got COVID, but I mean, I was here. We can talk hypothetical, we can talk numbers from CDC, from Wisconsin, but I was in this room with people from the community, and there was 4 people wearing masks. And I'm not saying that's the test sample, but I'm saying it's a pretty good test sample of people. So I think we got to really keep in mind everyone. It's not black or white. It's not all or nothing.
I think the other thing to keep in mind too is when you hear from patients,
No, I wasn't here for 8 hours. Oh, we're-
Last Tuesday,
Yeah, and it's numbers of-
drastically last week, thought it was. This week, thought it was. Well, it's a lot higher.
What days are back to school night?
You said for four people different.
4 cases.
4 cases.
37 per 100,000.
So the number is kind of not 4 people. And like Dennis said, they could be one family. And my family, we got COVID. We had 4 people in the family, three of us got it. So I don't think it's cut and dry. I don't think we need to argue about it, but I think that,
Agreed. I think it's super hard.
yeah.
And I'm
it's
not
tough.
one or the other, I'm just trying to, like, I'm not.
But we're talking, you know, I look, the girls here are playing volleyball, the cross country people are.
But those are also physically vaccinated.
So Jessica, there's Jessica just sent us an update at 4:40 today with the brand new numbers that came out literally as of today.
Yeah, it's 4. That's the number that Dennis was sharing.
So this is what you're sharing.
Yeah, there's 4 people. And I get that, they could be vaccinated, but I could also say 54, I mean, I could use numbers, 54.3% of the school district is vaccinated. 19% of 5 to 18-year-olds make up the testing positive rate. 40-some% of middle schoolers of 12 and above in the school are vaccinated. I can make all the numbers, and we can do a whole bunch of things that make it look like it's not.
But I don't know. I don't go by the times.
I get that. So, you know, to go 12 and over, to go 12 and over and say, you've had your choice to be vaccinated. At this point, you've had your choice. And 5 to 12-year-olds haven't had a choice.
That's what I realized, the little kids who don't have.
But on-
Are high risk.
But on November 1st or October 1st or whatever day it is when they're able to get vaccinated, you know, there should be a timeline where you had your chance to get vaccinated. That's it. Like,
Right, but you also have to figure that you gotta wait 2 shots and then it's like a couple.
yeah, no, I get that.
that.
No, I get
But we also told these kids that they got vaccinated, even if they were minors.
And that's
But
what,
right now, we're not talking
That's
about.
Dennis's.
Yeah, that's what makes
you know, 97% of teachers in the school, is it 97%?
So it's about that. Yeah.
97% of the teachers in school are vaccinated. Why would we tell them to put a mask back? And I get the kids have to be in a mask, but they went out and did what they were supposed to do because that's what they were told.
And we're not saying they can't have, that's the thing, just bottom into the thing you are. Any choice you want, the individual freedom should not be traumatized over this COVID thing. 99.98% survival. We didn't do it for the flu. The regular flu.
So what day is the back to school night? What day is the back to school night?
Next Thursday.
So what I think what I would be a proponent of is if we put the metrics in place for you to continue watching, and if you're able to decide, and if, you know, say tomorrow there's 10 cases in Fall River, then 15, obviously we see a trend. If there's still 4 cases next week, like, then you've got a choice to make. Maybe there will be 2 cases next week, because it'll be past the 7-day rolling average. I think that our job, especially with this year going into the second year of the pandemic schooling, is to give you the flexibility and the trust that to follow the metrics that you believe will keep our kids safest, to make those decisions, because it's probably going to change faster than last year now that the data is more accurate to just the school district. Hopefully change favorably for us, and then it won't be an issue. And like we saw like 2 weeks ago, there was like 0 cases in the district. Now there's 4, so it's like, okay, is that going to plateau? Is it 1 family? Is that 4 families? And then there'll be 16. Like, I think that we're at a point that we need to hand over some decision making to you and follow the recommendation that you're making.
And when I put this down last week, when there's no cases, I put down 50 per 100,000, which is the CDC. When there's substantial spread, they feel like it. I put that number down when I like the data. Now I don't like the data, but you still got to just use the data. You've got a benchmark, and that's the benchmark. If it goes below that, we denounce it. Don't worry about the mask tomorrow or the next day or next week, whatever, because we're down below that number. So if it's not a substantial spread, why are we doing it as much as we have done in the past? So, that's really the mask is the issue, because it's the only other thing that we aren't really doing a lot of. That's the question. Take that off or not. A lot of the stuff we'll do the same. not all of things we did last year, we're a little bit more relaxed in some ways, but that's like the relaxed way. We'll continue doing something, we're gonna continue sanitizing classrooms for 20 years probably. I mean, some of these things, the sanitizer, stay out, we're gonna keep doing a lot of those things. But I just put down that benchmark, that's what CDC uses, and the data I don't like today. I like the data last week. But if by next Thursday night at open house, this will be different. So I think we do have to make some flexibility in making those changes. But part of that, I'll find out for you, if you said, if school started tomorrow, because we don't have kids coming until August 30th, week from Monday. If the number stays above 50, you approve masks on elementary, or you not, just let's stay optional. That's kind of what we're looking for.
I find it difficult to be honoring everything the CDC says after all the different changes that they've done, and all the contradictions that they've done. And the fact that they, number 3 lady at the CDC stated that we have to keep the lockdowns and the mask in place. We cannot risk this virus going away on its own naturally. We'll never get them to take the vaccine.
So you're not using that.
What we're using is Department of Health Services. But what I'm referencing CDC is they say 50 out of 100,000 people is substantial spread. That is their metric. But I'm using the local Department of Wisconsin Department of Health Services website.
Yeah, we'll never get out of this if we're going to continue looking nationally. I mean, I think it's important to look nationally, but I think it's important to look locally also. Like, we can't base our decisions off what Madison's doing. It's just not.
I don't think it is.
No, I don't
I
think
know
so.
that.
No, right, so I think,
They're both like that.
just reiterate, keep it as local as possible is important, I think, for all of us, because, again, to just up and turn everything for 4 cases just seems awful.
But when Jessica was talking about it, she looked at it, there's like numbers that show the community spread too, which then it's like, it wouldn't necessarily be like a household. So like it would show, which is like, you know, so if somebody, if I had 4 people in my household, we all get it, that number wouldn't come forward. It would say,
She's got access to a lot of
You know what
data.
I'm saying?
She has access to a lot
That
more.
made me feel that she was referring to that, because that's another number that she really watches, is like the community spread. And in Harbor, I don't know as the teachers have to do with Quebec, but some of our surrounding areas have skyrocketed quite a bit. So those are just things that I can't explain it, but those are things that she had explained that I was.
There were teachers in the school today, we're doing the flooring project, and there's teachers in the school, the kids are in the school, and they're not wearing masks, so to think that now we're gonna decide because in 2 weeks school starts to put masks back on, it just seems like you want your personal choice until you don't want your personal choice, and it's really two-sided. I don't know.
It's tough to decide. You're kind of got to just give us direction tonight for this 12 days so kids are actually going to know it.
It's gonna change a lot.
Yeah, it's going to change again in those 12 days. We probably have to look at it each week and say, okay, for the next week, here's our plan.
With your 50 number, maybe you said this, with your 50 number, what was that, kids per? What was that?
50 is probably really 2 people. It's 4 people, it's 137. 4 people out of 2,902 people who live in our district, do that ratio out of 100,000, that's 137 people, just a very small number of population.
And not that it's a big deal, but these numbers aren't even for people, I mean, these numbers, the percentages I struggle with. But it's not even talking about asymptomatic, the people that have had it that never knew they had it. I don't know, I just have a hard time with changing everything. I get the 5 to 12-year-olds and putting in a mask if that's what we need to do, 100%. The city will change everything because of.
Everything.
Well, I know, really, well, if it goes to 50, well, that's 2 people, and now we're gonna put we're gonna put K through 12 people, I'm sorry, kindergarten through 12-year-olds in mass over 2 people. I think we're always.
Personally, I hate kindergarten.
What is so wrong with not requiring the mask if those that want to wear it? And we enjoy a success rate that's better than the rest of the country. We show them what's wrong with that.
We're only talking about K through 5 and 2, and I do agree with Dennis's point that, and this isn't a personal opinion, but I can see it, like, it would be harder for the teachers as well. Like, if you have a kindergartner and you have to wear your mask, and I leave you for the day, and none of your two friends don't have to wear their mask, like, I would think that it would make it much harder for teachers and parents to feel good about the situation.
Can I say a quick comment back here? I worry a little bit about if we require half our staff to wear masks and the other half not to, that creates some sort of animosity between our staff. I worry a little bit about that. As we talk about some staff wearing them, some staff not wearing them. I just know how that could maybe.
Are you recommending all staff wear masks?
I'm not recommending anything. I'm just worried about the animosity between it.
What I would say is on the staff end of it though is, if you are going, if you do consider that staff end of things, I'd consider, if you can, staff that have been vaccinated, and I also consider last year we allowed them to take their masks off, presenting in the front, and there's distancing things. So I think there are things that we can do to reduce it. I would consider that as you think about it.
You could tell staff, when you're within 3 feet of children, have a mask on in the elementary. If you're not within 3 feet of children for 15 minutes, you don't have to have it on. That is a possibility.
They also say that with younger kids, they need to see the facial expressions of the teacher when they're announcing words and things of those. That's a learning process as well. We're in the business of teaching K through 12 system.
I teach special ed and I taught the mask all last year and I couldn't screen level, so he made a lot of growth. So,
But I will say that
And
last year
the
I
other
was
people
in
are
elementary
just
students.
fluff that they're saying. I mean, that's the thing that just bothers me. The opposing view is sensitive. And the only one that matters is the way the CDC and this regime was running things here.
Okay, we're not here to evaluate the CDC or
I
any
don't
regimes or
think that-
censoring. We're here to try to do our best, and that's what we're doing.
And we're-
We all can only
And
go,
we're working through it right now.
we need something to look at, this is the bottom line, like Dennis, like that's the parent data out there, like how it works. So somehow we gotta try to go out. with something that we have to try to create.
I think a proposal is that we use the Department of Health Services data. If it goes over 50 per 100,000, add masks to elementary students. And probably got to go through grade 6 because they're not 12 years old yet. We probably have to go through grade 6. And tell staff that if you're within 3 feet of kids, you should put a mask on when you're around the kids who cannot be vaccinated. Middle school, high school, like I guess 7th grade on up. Pretty much business as normal. That's kind of my recommendation.
Are 7th graders and 12th graders going to retain their kids? Are they retain their kids?
If we bring them down, like we had that before, then they probably should. Yes.
What is? There is no threshold right now that you think that gets to 7th grade and above that they have to put masks on?
If we had some, see, that might be the other part that I put in here. We look at our own data, what's going on in our school. We had a large number of kids getting COVID in our middle school, high school. We have to quarantine them first. That'd probably be our first tool, quarantine, so it doesn't spread. I'm still not sure I put masks on.
But we're not quarantining the ones that have been vaccinated.
Correct.
I have a question. I think I read recently that the recommendation is if kids in the classroom are wearing masks and actually test positive, the rest of us wouldn't have to quarantine them. Is that correct? But if none of us were wearing masks, we would all have to quarantine.
And that's what I thought it was going to be, what they recommend masks in elementary, originally we did last year, send them all home, so we probably have to adapt.
Yeah, so like the current recommendation is if like Ashley, if we're in elementary school and Ashley's mask, we're all masked, she tests positive, sorry, Ashley. The whole class wouldn't have to quarantine, she would just be homesick. Now, if none of us were wearing masks, the entire class would have to.
And that would make it actually a little bit simpler in the elementary where we would be sending the entire class home then too. That would be one advantage of asking the elementary students to wear the masks because then we don't have to quarantine all those kids who will wear masks.
That was the current, right? Yeah, I just remember that was the current recommendation. From DPI and the Department of Health.
You know, we're like the first school debating this tonight because today is when the data went south. Everyone met on Monday, they came up with a totally different conclusion. I would make a totally different recommendation on Monday and Tuesday, but by next Wednesday, who knows what it will be like.
That's why I think it's important to give you that, like you did last week, right? Rough, and nice job changing, taking the steps. What decision is made, by the time school starts, it could be, things could be drastically different. You know, we will say, no, never mind, it's a lot better. Or vice versa, like now, you know, we now have 40 kids, you know.
Sure.
I just think it has to be clear to the parent. Like, I think it has to be crystal clear to the parents, because I do, again, I'm just gonna keep going back to those younger kids and I don't know, I just think it's gotta be.
It's, you know, it's gonna be crystal clear to parents, 85% of them, I don't have statistics, but over 80% of them are gonna be mad that their kids are masks. Yes. And we're right now, yeah, I think
No one likes what we're doing. No one's gonna agree totally 100% what we're doing. None of us want to do what we're doing today. We all just wish we could just do it normal school year, 100%.
All the emails that I've gotten, I've got 2 that were in favor of masks, and the rest have been not in favor of masks. And that's both at the county and the school level. So I guess to get this moving on, if somebody feels the need to change or modify the existing plan that we approved prior, they need to formulate a motion to do so.
Well, Dennis isn't recommending this prior. Are you saying not? Are you saying to go by?
But we've already got, we've approved the plan that existed with no, or not a mandatory mask, recommended, required. Or if you want to formulate a motion that have something different, that's fine, whatever you want to do.
Can we add in there and I wish Jessica was here because she'd speak to it more eloquently, that if a classroom is masked and a student tests positive, the entire class is in quarantine, just the student who's sick. Because that will make it feel better too, is like there's the additional reason why we're masking is to limit the need for classrooms, because we are, like you said, in the job of education, if we see an opportunity that the class could more often stay in school, I think that's where we should head.
So then what's gonna happen when masks aren't mandatory and somebody tests like, and you don't know who's in a mask and who doesn't, what's the protocol?
because then they'd be vaccinated.
Yeah.
I mean, like 5 to 12 year olds.
Well, no, not necessarily, because if they're talking about changing it, all of a sudden the numbers go down to 1%, and then we're not asking them, then what happens?
I think that we have to probably, if it's optional, probably would be the whole class, just if we can't track, if you can't confirm safety and or that.
Those people, if the masks come off, there are some people that want to wear the mask, they should wear the mask and they're not going home.
Then I don't know how you're gonna do that. Are you gonna then call the teacher to say, who in your room is masked?
Be pretty clear.
I don't want that.
At a middle high level, how many kids that were around there?
Let's get back to teaching instead of trying to.
That's middle and high school, though, we're talking about elementary.
But even elementary, I mean,
We did hear a lot of like.
You're with them, right?
Yes. Like, I think that's very.
that's a very,
That's
Right,
really
because that
exact,
was
because I
just
didn't know
school.
what that was. Thinking, I do think that's a big fact, like, we all have the goal of trying to keep the kids in school, and we still keep that for last year. All the teachers, like, how hard it is to not have to do class in and out, or trying to bounce back and forth from being, we can try to help prevent that for them as much as possible.
there's 25 kids in a class, I'm sorry, if there's 3 kids wearing masks, you're gonna know who they are. If there's 12, they're the same 12 kids every day. They're not bouncing back and forth in and out of masks.
But see, that's my fear, is we're talking about kids that are like 6, 7, 8 years old, like, I don't even know if they're gonna be consistent, and it's not necessarily, in my opinion, because they don't wanna wear a mask, I think they're gonna come in for recess, and they're gonna forget they need to put their mask. And I don't think,
I think Dennis and Jessica, are watching. So I would make the motion to go with this recommendation and give. I mean, obviously, we want you to continue to update us and do like what we did last year, when we're all.
Using the reference we got here.
To that discussion.
And you're suggesting go through 6th grade, not just through elementary, go through 6th grade because they don't have the option to be vaccinated, or it will at some point during their 6th grade year. It's all in different terms.
First, we got a motion by member, here a second.
I can't hear you. Back to us. If there's like a certain threshold that we would want, then for us to be on that, you know what I mean? Like last year, we didn't really talk to it, and we just communicated, and then we kind of decided if there was a special meeting, like he would let us know if he felt like we needed to have a special meeting.
We pretty much decided last year.
Last year, he just let us know, we called it.
We had 2 weeks, 2 weeks, not in school week. So, it's here. With the number of kids vaccinated, we will send as many homes as we be able to keep open.
Is there a chance I could say something? Is there a chance that I mean, if you're gonna give Dennis and our team and Jessica a chance to look at the data and look at that, and does it have to be a decision that's made right now, or you're looking for elementary, or what's the current recommendation that we're masking elementary or K
Yeah,
through
I'm
6?
asking through 6th grade students.
That's not going to be in consideration at all. What are we going to do to the families that won't put a mask on their child? There is no virtual option, correct? No matter.
That's it.
So are they going to be eating out of school during that time? And are they going to be able to continue to learn?
We hadn't looked at virtual option this year. We didn't think we were going to go down this path. We'd have to reevaluate that.
So the motion, number one, restate it again, so Andrew's got to clarify.
Yeah, my motion is to go with Dennis's current recommendation, but to give administration that based on.
The numbers I gave you here in the sheet. So we won't change if that's the number. It's that number, we can change it. Really, all we're changing is mass or no mass.
Literally, like I said that today, so.
There's a second.
I'll second that.
A motion by Amber, seconded by Derek. Any further discussion?
And that fee will not be approved by. Right, that's what we did last year. It just needs to be put on the warrant. Yep. Motion to have your suggestion to. Do we need to make a motion to add your suggestion as far as? Oh, yeah.
Elementary students test positive, and if everyone is masked, then
We can add that to mine.
It's a friendly amendment.
Yes, that would be, thank you.
Second, any further discussion?
I respect your guys' opinion. I just have a hard time. I get the 5 to 12-year-olds and putting masks on them, but I just look at the numbers, it just doesn't make sense. It makes sense to put kids in, and I say on the other side of my mouth that it doesn't make sense because we've got 4 kids or four people in the district. It seems like it's a huge overreaction. Yes. That's 4 people, that's 4 people, that's what. Well, that's actually, it's not, that's what the 100,000 says. It could change, but it could even go lower. But that's what the data is saying, 4 people in the district. I mean, that's what the numbers do say.
So what, I mean, you have a
No, I just want to say that I respect your guys' opinion. And I respect the opinion. I can respect your opinion, but I don't have to be completely for it either. I want to make that clear. I don't, that's not a,
it's just, I don't know what's right, and I don't have.
Well, and
I have to make a decision, and I think that is spending a lot of time. The other superintendents and other close districts having long meetings. Unless somebody else has.
I certainly believe that everybody is a caring person in this board as well as people in the audience. The only concern I have, I'm not going to be in favor, is the fact that we're unwilling to try the other things. We're so willing to put everybody in the mask, but we're so unwilling to try. A period of time out to see if we're actually the catalyst in creating the right remedy for this problem.
If we do that, and I'm not a child, but if we did that and it goes the other way, we're all out of school again and then everybody's virtual, which is that is the one unanimous thing that we have heard from all sides of the thing, majority wise, is that nobody wants to go back to virtual, like nobody wants to be virtual. Like pretty much 98% of what we're all hearing is that they want us to do what we can to keep this school. And Barbara, in my opinion, is one of the districts that was able to do that last year by following, the recommendation. I'm not saying either way, like I said, I'm just saying that that's my concern is the risk of doing that. It's like, I don't know that would happen, but that's my concern. It's just, what if we have then a huge, then we can't come back from to like a long time. And I don't know that would happen. And that's my worry. Is that it did.
Okay, any further discussion?
I was just gonna say, maybe there's a compromise and that for some feel like. Just because again, I feel like parents are going
I do want to say after watching a lot of across the nation, I do appreciate everyone's civility with this because we can have discourse and obviously that happens in politics and we just have to move forward at a certain point. So appreciate everybody looking solution focused. I'll put those references.
but this isn't politics.
That's right. Politics on lowercase, like not.
I was just trying to make the right
In
decision.
decision making
For everyone.
In decision making, there is discourse and
That's why I say I respect all you guys, your opinions. I just, I respect your opinions. It doesn't mean that I agree 100%, but it's just, I have my thing that I'm looking at, so.
Any others? Very good. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I was just gonna ask one more thing. I was gonna say, when you're talking about leaving it up to him, like, what is the timeline we're looking at? Like, how much leeway time are we gonna be giving that information out to parents before all of a sudden things have changed?
I think I'll put something out tomorrow here and say that the school started funding. This is what we do based on the DPI or the Department of Health Services numbers. Probably every Thursday, you're gonna send out another note and say, once a week, this is what next week's gonna be. The numbers are going bad, the numbers are going better. Can't change day to day, kind of go the week at a time. So I would say I'm gonna send it out every Thursday. Here's what next week will be.
So any change would always take place on the beginning of the fall.
Yep. Okay, I'm hoping that very soon, I get to say, next Monday, don't worry about your masks.
So a quick question too, if we are we then doing masks for sports and spectators and how does that look?
This is elementary, right?
So if elementaries come to the games, so they're masked or not?
But I would say,
The motion doesn't specify that, so I would say no.
I would say no also. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, with your parents. This is for during the school day. I don't think we're making this recommendation for any evening activities.
I mean, the hypocrisy. We're not gonna put them in masks at the basketball game, but we're putting them in masks at school, and it's not because, some of it's because of home out there at school. It's just, it's the hypocrisy. So I can't. They could potentially come with their unvaccinated parents.
No.
I don't know, no, I.
Like, I'm not saying that.
No.
It's not a different one that is, it's not my own middle. I'd love to hear. That's what I mean, I totally see both sides here, so.
No, I think where you guys are going to is a good spot. I'm not for it, but I respect your guys' opinion, and I will be 100% on board after the vote is made. I will be. I mean, that's our role. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here.
That would be the best.
That was
As of
the
yesterday, that was your.
I do not want masks. Absolutely. But
Okay.
I can't follow data or emotions.
Okay, that's that point. You want to do a roll call? Good.
I'm not in favor.
What's that?
No, yeah, I was just. So no.
Ashley,
Yes.
Ember,
Yes.
Derek,
Yes.
Keith is a no. Not opposed to having the administration do decisions, but I'm opposed to any type of mandates. Fair enough. Fair enough. I appreciate everybody's discussion here. I think we certainly got an opportunity to make an informed decision. Again, respect the board decision. That's the way we're trying. Fair enough.
To be candid, we sit here and get emails every day both ways. So no matter, everybody here in the auditorium, or everybody here in the auditorium, are for or against it. It's a tough thing sitting up here trying to make decisions for everyone.
Okay, we'll move on to discussion of possible action on the 2021-22 bus driver contracts.
I have some information on bus drivers. We have 3 morning bus routes. Drivers are Kevin Book, Dale Ferrari, and Brian Anderson. Mr. Ferrari also does a Columbus run at Transition House, Zion Lutheran and Peterson Elementary. That's a separate route. We have a noon 4K transportation route for David Liebenthal. We have afternoon parochial route to Transition, Zion and Peterson again for Mr. Ferrari. And we have 2 bus routes in the afternoon with Mr. Ferrari and Mr. Anderson, and a 1 van route, which is Mr. Liebenthal. So overall, Mr. Ferrari has an AM and PM route and Columbus runs. David Liebenthal has a 4K route and a PM route. Mr. Book has an AM bus route, and Brian Anderson has an AM and PM bus route. Brent Van Geisel, Mike Taves, and myself are subs on that driver's list. So just some information for you. Looking to get that approved.
Dennis, anything to add? No. Okay, with that, then I'll entertain a motion for. I'll second it. I'm sorry.
I can make a motion if that's what you want to do.
Thank you, appreciate that. So we-
And I will second it, actually.
We got a motion by Derek and a second by Nathan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, and all those in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Next up, the discussion of possible action on the staffing recommendations. Looks like we have a hiring of Kendra Payton for the instructional coach and no designations.
Kendra, who's here tonight, went through our process after we had posted again and was by far our best candidate. Was awesome in her answers and standard-based grading. Exciting to grow as a professional. We're super excited to have her here and moving up in our district, and exciting to move forward with standard-based grading and providing support to our staff.
I'll entertain a motion for the hiring.
I'll make the motion this time to hire Kendra Payton as instructional coach.
Okay, motion by Nathan, second by Ashley. Any further discussion?
Do we have to hire now?
Posted for English teacher.
I have one interview set up Friday, waiting on another one. And so I got a couple other 8 interviews as well in the next couple of days. So what was a quiet summer for me has sped up a little bit here at the end.
Did we get a good applicant pool?
In a few days, not a great applicant pool. I think what we're doing, I'll talk with Mr. Burr a little more, but offer a 1-year position and then reapply. As usual, what we do is common practice when we have hired this late in August, that we're not locked into a situation that would maybe put us in a bad spot.
Further discussion?
No, I thank you for being an English teacher. Because my daughter just got her Aspire test score back, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so glad English doesn't see. Oh.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations. District reports, principals.
All right, so I just want to thank Mrs. Wagner and all of our new staff for today coming in. We had new teacher orientation, a great group of candidates that we hired coming in. We're excited to have them here as teachers. And I know Mrs. Wagner also puts in a lot of work into today, and she did a great job. I want to thank Floor 360 for the elementary flooring. If you haven't had a chance, please walk down. It looks great. We're halfway through the project, but it does look very nice. And the special ed world, we have completed the parent audit surveys. Those have been completed, and we have reached our goal on that with participation. We actually had very good participation. And the next step, it will be on next Wednesday, September 25th. Our staff will go through audit training so that they kind of know the process going into it this school year through the special ed audit. And then we also have a parent who's also going to be within our group as a parent member. So
I have 3 things to talk about. Number 1, I'm excited to work with Kendra. I know she just walked out now, so this is awkward. So excited. We already met today a little bit about where we want to go in the next year with grading for learning. We met with Amy as well, who just left, but getting the plans together, having a monthly meeting set aside for her to work with staff, and especially middle school, high school, and that standard-based learning and grading. So really just kind of ready to start looking at her day and giving her some ideas as we're working through some stuff today. So pretty excited to work with her. Student council, I know you kind of caught me off guard there this morning, earlier, and we do have some stuff that student council sent me as far as homecoming. They're looking to do powder puff, macho man, and dodgeball again. They're looking to have a Thursday parade. It's the board games as a theme. They're looking to set up a stand for open house night to collect old pirate wear and kind of recycle it or give it out to other people that may want it. You know, as people's kids get out of school, they don't necessarily need all their pirate gear anymore. So finding a way to be creative through the student council to give it and get it donated and give it at great prices to other people that may need some pirate gear. So they're looking to do those things. And then finally, Mrs. Litherland sent us some good news just here before the board meeting. Sure, culinary food waste solution. Approximately 1/3 of our food waste ends up in landfills. Students in the culinary art classes are concerned about food waste. One method that we decided that could help combat the food waste is coming up with compost and using it as fertilizer. They raise funds through Donor's Choice, and we're able to get a tabletop compost machine, a Vitamix food cycler, FC50, and through that bin, they're gonna make compost and turn it into fertilizer within hours. And so that way they can wait 30 days before using it, but they're really excited about that new pack and being able to do some of that stuff to make fertilizer. They got, Mrs. Lillard got a grant from Wisconsin Beef and Pork Council for $150. King Arthur Bake for goods and flour kits will be used for teacher appreciation treats in the October PT conferences. So Melissa Livland has been very busy, not only continuing her education in SDS, but looking for grant opportunities. I know she's also waiting for 2 from the Columbus Area Endowment. So she's been very busy and been very successful in getting funds for our school and her program. So a shout out to her.
In my report, your packet mentioned that you're interested in state education convention in January in Milwaukee. She's doing a whole thing at here so she can get hotel rooms. I mentioned it, but for the annual legal seminar this July, always a lot of information. As they will bring home a number of things to pass on to Brian and Ryan, so they're up to date, educated on some special ed and student issues. And the other last thing with the audit is we had, I think, a relatively low number of audit entries that auditors asked us to make. So it's really tribute to Colleen and Andrea for having pretty clean books and having taken care of as much as they did before the auditors got there.
The next agenda item is, make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Derek, seconded by Edward. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Do you know who seconded the adjourn motion? Who seconded, Ember did? Ember, thank you.